welcome back to Learn Oikonomia. Here we are continuing with the Keynesian Consumption Function. I hope you have watched the first video which dealt with the Keynesian Consumption Function. Anyway, I'll be providing the link of the same in the description box so that you can go through that video first and then come back to this video to get an connected flow or overall understanding of the topic. So let's continue with the flow. Let's understand the subjective and objective factors affecting the consumption expenditure of an individual. As per Keynes, aggregate real consumption expenditure, when we are saying that aggregate, we are not actually referring to a particular person or a single individual, we are referring to the whole economy. So, the aggregate real consumption expenditure depends on the aggregate real national income. We are assuming that all the other things remaining constant. The factors other than the level of income that affect consumption would be divided into three groups: subjective, objective, and structural. Okay. So that means that there are subjective factors influencing your consumption. There are objective factors influencing your consumption, as well as there have been the role of structural factors influencing your consumption level. When I say subjective factors, it means the psychological factors that affect the consumption of an individual, or the consumption pattern or consumption habit or consumption behavior of the individual. So these factors cannot be quantitatively measured. All these are qualitative factors, whereas in the case of objective factors, these are considered to be economic variables which could be measured quantitatively. Coming to structural factors, these include certain aspects which are particularly relevant for the problem of aggregation. For us, first consider the subjective psychological factors which affect consumption patterns. These factors consist of the basic values, state of mind, attitude, etc., which cannot be measured in terms of numbers, or you cannot measure all these things in quantitative terms. As per Keynes, there have been various motives of saving, such as there have been precautionary motives, there have been foresighted, there have been entrepreneur-related motives. So all these motives for consumption, all these motives which are there for consumption are common for saving and vice versa. So these things cannot be measured quantitatively. All these are qualitative factors. He called all these them as subjective factors, which may change significantly in the long run, but it won't change significantly in the short run. So that's the main important thing that you have to take care of. All these factors are those factors which cannot be changed in the short run. Okay. Psychological factors such as expectations, attitude, etc. influence consumption. We know that the rational behavior suggests that a consumer who expects an increase in income or price level would consume more than one who expects no such a kind of change. Keynes accepted this kind of logic, but he felt that expectation can be ignored because different people in the economy will have different expectations. Some people will expect that there will be an increase in the price level in the future, whereas some will assume that, or where some will expect that there will be a decrease in the price level in the future, or some people would assume that there would be a constancy in the price level. That means that today's price level would be almost similar to what you could experience tomorrow. Let's consider the objective factors now. These objective factors are mainly with respect to income, interest rate, etc. So if you are going for interest rate, we can see that interest rate may affect your aggregate consumption expenditure mainly in two ways. For example, if there is a rise in the interest rate, this will reduce the bond prices, because we know that there is an inverse relationship between the interest rate and bond price. So this would discourage your consumption propensities, and that means that this would affect your consumption. It may be also noted that substituting one type of asset for another is an important aspect here. If you look into the case of classical economists, you could see that these people, they believe that consumption or saving was primarily a function of rate of interest. But Keynes did not consider that the rate of interest can be an important factor in influencing consumption or saving. The second factor influencing consumption expenditure is the volume of wealth. The argument is that all the other things being equal, the more savings a man has, the less would be his desire to accumulate more. That means that a rich person would be less encouraged to invest more for his future. So this is actually, if you're going for an example, you could see that if you're comparing two persons, one would have, so if two persons, just assume that these two persons have similar needs, tastes, income, etc. But one has got so much of wealth, and whereas the other person has got only less wealth. Here, if you look into the saving pattern or saving behavior of these two people, you could understand that the saving of the person who has got less wealth would be more than the saving done by the person who has got more wealth. Okay. And this, it is considered to be true for the whole economy. The greater the volume of wealth in the economy, the greater will be the consumption expenditure. Right. That means that if you have plenty of wealth in your hand, you are less encouraged to save. So you will spend a lot for your consumption expenditure, which is known as the Pigou effect. A part of your wealth is held in the form of money. Any change in money holdings without any equivalent change in other wealth would be regarded as a wealth effect. More money means more spending. It should be remembered that consumption expenditure depends upon the real quantity of money. It is not on the nominal quantity of money. We are just referring to the real quantity. That means that the nominal divided by price level. So, if the nominal quantity of money remains the same but price level changes, there will be a change in the real quantity of money, which will change consumption expenditure, which is known as a real balance effect. The third factor affecting consumption expenditure is the terms of consumer credit, which may have been considered as a significant factor in affecting your consumption. The less restricted the terms of credit, the greater would be the demand for consumer durables. However, the impact of credit on volume of consumption expenditure would be very much difficult to measure. The last but the least, the sales effort of producer would affect consumption expenditure. And if you are going for sales promotion through advertisement, this has got some significant effect on the consumption expenditure. Now you can take the role of the structural factor. We are just referring to the income distribution to look into the structural factor aspect. Other things remaining the same, the greater the volume of advertising expenditure you have, the greater would be your consumption expenditure. We know that the marginal propensity to consume of low income people is substantially higher than the marginal propensity to consume of high income people. Hence, when there is redistribution of income from rich income groups to poor income groups, this will increase consumption expenditure in an economy even if the level of income remains unchanged. This is because the loss of consumption of rich people will be overcompensated by the gain of consumption of the poor, since the marginal propensity of poor is higher than that of rich. Since the distribution of income all changes slowly, it is unlikely to have a short-term impact that the economy in the economy. Okay, and when considering the cross-section studies related to consumption expenditure, we could see that at a given level of income, there are significant differences between the consumption spending of different families, and these differences could be explained partly by demographic factors such as family size, place of residence, etc., and some aspects could be explained by using other factors. Rural families spend less than urban families, and families with young children are likely to spend more than those without children. And these are considered to be some of the demographic factors. Having discussed the demographic factors, let's come to the role of fiscal policy in influencing the aggregate consumption expenditure. If the government raises money through taxation, it would reduce the disposable income of the people. Similarly, if the government reduces taxes, this would increase the disposable income in the hands of people. If the national income remains unchanged, disposable income may change because fiscal operation of the government and there is a change, and the consumption expenditure would change as well. Financial policies of a large corporation may also change the aggregate consumption expenditure. Dividend policies of joint stock companies can increase or decrease income, and this will have impact on consumption expenditure. Corporate saving may reduce disposable income of consumers and hence affect their national income. And if corporations keep a large fraction of their income in the form of undistributed profit, this would discourage consumption. Or if corporations give away a large fraction of their income in the form of dividend, this would increase your consumption expenditure. just conclude this by saying that if there are subjective, objective and structural factors which influence consumption expenditure, but most of these factors we know that this would remain unchanged in the short run, and hence short run aggregate consumption function would be regarded as a function of income. So you are just looking into the role of income and changes in income influencing your consumption if you are dealing with the short run analysis. When any of these factors that are assumed to remain constant change the consumption, definitely this function would shift as well. Just going for empirical support for the consumption function, you can see the Keynesian consumption function hypothesis. We have seen that this is not based on any kind of empirical study and it is made out of just intuition. Two types of data may be used to test the validity of this hypothesis. One is the budget studies data and other one is the time series data. If you're going for budget studies data, we have some information on consumption and income of families of different income groups. And in time series data, we have got some information on the consumption and income for a number of years. Keynes consumption function hypothesis this has received support from different budget studies as well as time series data. The earliest studies indicated that Keynesian consumption function is a good approximation of how consumers would behave. The cross-section budget studies involve taking a sample of households and classifying them as per their income. Divide the average level of consumption spending for each income group and we can find their average propensity to consume. This has been used to in different settings. This has been used to find out the APC. We could see that APC has a tendency to fall as we move from lower to higher income group, and also APC has a greater chance than MPC in every case here. This is the typical result that supports absolute income hypothesis. That is the one which is given by Keynes. The study also reveals that households with greater income consume more, which implies that the MPC is positive. These studies also found that households with higher income save more, which implies that MPC is a value which lies between 0 and 1. Okay, it is positive but less than 1. These data supported Keynesian prediction that MPC lies between 0 and 1, and in addition we could see that studies also found that higher income households save a larger fraction of their income, which is confirmed by Keynes' proposition that APC falls as income rises. If you look into other studies, we could understand that time series data on consumption and income, especially during the Second World War period, was taken, and this data also supported some of the propositions made by Keynes with respect to his consumption function. During these years, income was very low, consumption, saving, etc. were very low, and which implies that MPC lies between 0 and 1. In addition, during those low years of income, the ratio of consumption to income was high, confirming the Keynesian second proposition. Finally, because the correlation between income and consumption was very high, that no other variables appear to be important for explaining consumption, and thus income appears to be the primary determinant of consumption. Keynesian consumption function has been supported by time series data as well. If you go for the Simon Kuznets, the consumption puzzle analysis regarding the validity of Keynesian consumption function, you could see that the short-run time series studies and household data found a relationship between the consumption and income similar to the one proposed by Keynes. But studies of long-run time series found that APC did not vary systematically with income, and the long-run consumption function has a constant APC, whereas in the short-run consumption function we have a falling APC. The results of the study do not support absolute income hypothesis, as we have already mentioned. Further, the long-run consumption function is found to be proportional. The absolute income hypothesis appears to explain the cross-section and short-run time series data as well, but it fails to explain the long-run time series data. One objective of the more recent theories has been to try and reconcile this apparent conflict in the different sets of statistical results. So that's all. Please like, share and subscribe to this channel for more videos. I welcome you to my Telegram group and Telegram channel to discuss your doubts, and thank you for watching.